The village of Orua had always been a peaceful place. Nestled between rolling hills and a river that glistened under the midday sun, the people of Orua thrived on farming, trading, and community festivals. The village chief, Chief Ekene, was respected and feared in equal measure. A man of strength and honor, he ruled with a steady hand and a stern demeanor, and his wife, Adanna, was known for her beauty and grace. Together, they were the pride of the village. But, as with every seemingly perfect place, a darkness lurked beneath the surface. Whispers began to circulate that Adanna, who always seemed so devoted to her husband, had been seen wandering into the forest during the evenings. At first, it was brushed off as mere gossip, idle chatter meant to pass the time. However, the whispers grew louder when a stranger arrived in Orua. This stranger, Obinna, was unlike anyone the villagers had ever seen. He was tall, with piercing eyes and a mysterious aura. He came from nowhere, claiming to be a wandering trader, but no one could recall ever seeing his wares. His sudden presence raised suspicion, but the villagers were too entranced by his charisma to question him for long. Adanna, in particular, seemed drawn to him. It was subtle at first, lingering glances, stolen moments of conversation, but soon, it became apparent that something deeper was unfolding. Chief Ekene, a man of intuition, began to notice his wife's growing distance. Adanna, once eager to sit beside him during the evening gatherings, now found excuses to leave early. Her smile, which had once been warm, now felt hollow, and the fire in her eyes that had drawn him to her seemed to be fading. One night, as the moon cast long shadows over the village, Ekene decided to follow his wife. He watched her slip out of their home, her steps careful and deliberate as she made her way toward the edge of the forest. His heart pounded as he moved silently behind her, ensuring she didn't hear his presence. To his horror, he saw her meet with the stranger, Obinna. Their conversation was too faint for him to hear, but the way they stood close to one another, the way Obinna's hand gently brushed her arm, told Ekene all he needed to know. Rage boiled inside him, but he held it back. He needed more. He needed to confront her with irrefutable proof. Days passed, and Chief Ekene's suspicion turned into cold certainty. He could no longer look at his wife without the image of her with Obinna flashing before his eyes. His mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? Was she planning to leave him? How could she betray him, and with a stranger no less? One evening, as the village gathered for a celebration, Ekene decided it was time. He called Adanna to his side and asked her to take a walk with him away from the crowd. His tone was calm, but beneath it was a simmering anger she couldn't ignore. As they reached the outskirts of the village, near the same forest where she had met Obinna, Ekene stopped and turned to her. His voice was low, filled with hurt and accusation. "Adanna, what is going on between you and the stranger?" Adanna's eyes widened, her face pale in the moonlight. She stammered, trying to come up with a response, but the guilt in her expression spoke louder than words. "I have seen you," Ekene continued, his voice now shaking with rage. "I saw you with him." Adanna's lips trembled, but before she could speak, a figure emerged from the shadows, Obinna. "You should not have followed her, Chief," Obinna said, his voice smooth and filled with confidence. Ekene's fury erupted. He lunged at the stranger, fist swinging, but Obinna was quick and agile. The two men clashed in the moonlit clearing, their fight brutal and filled with primal rage. Adanna screamed, torn between her loyalty to her husband and her forbidden love for the stranger. The fight came to an abrupt end when Obinna, bloodied and bruised, managed to overpower the chief. As Ekene lay on the ground, gasping for breath, Obinna knelt beside him, a strange smile on his face. "You think this is about love, Chief?" Obinna whispered. "This is not just a betrayal of the heart. This is about power. Your time as leader of this village is over." With those words, Obinna revealed the truth. He was not just a wandering stranger but a man with a plan. He had been sent by a rival village to weaken Orua, to sow discord within its leadership. Adanna had been seduced not just by his charm but by the promise of freedom from a marriage that had long grown cold. As Chief Ekene lay there, the weight of the betrayal settled upon him. It wasn't just his wife who had turned against him, but forces beyond his control. Adanna knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but her apology felt empty. Under the cover of night, Adanna and Obinna fled the village. The plan had been set in motion. As dawn broke, the villagers discovered that the chief's wife had vanished, and rumors of the fight spread like wildfire. Chief Ekene, though wounded, survived. But the damage was done. The village, once united, began to fracture. Without Adanna by his side, Ekene's leadership weakened. The villagers, unsure of where their loyalties lay, began to question everything. Meanwhile, Adanna and Obinna traveled to the rival village where Obinna's true allegiance lay. But their escape was not the romantic adventure Adanna had imagined. She found herself plagued with guilt, haunted by the betrayal she had wrought. Obinna, no longer the charming stranger but a cold and calculating man, revealed his true nature, and Adanna realized too late that she had traded one prison for another. Back in Orua, Chief Ekene struggled to rebuild. The betrayal of his wife and the loss of trust among his people weighed heavily on him. The village, once vibrant and strong, now felt empty. Whispers of a new leader began to surface, and Ekene knew his time was coming to an end. But even as the village moved on, the scars of betrayal lingered. Adanna's name became a cautionary tale, a reminder of how even the strongest bonds could be broken by temptation and deceit. In the rival village, Adanna's life with Obinna turned bleak. She had gained her freedom, but at the cost of her soul. She watched as Obinna manipulated those around him, just as he had done to her. And every night, as she lay beside him, she wondered if her betrayal had been worth the price. The story of Adanna and Chief Ekene became legend, passed down through generations as a tale of love, betrayal, and the consequences of desire. In the quiet moments of the night, the villagers of Orua would still hear the wind whispering through the trees, carrying with it the faint echoes of a love that was lost to the darkness.